5, 4, 3.
And welcome back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. And welcome to the first episode of the Michigan Basketball Insider. We are back. Me and Timmy Mack. That's not proper grammar. Proper grammar is Timmy Mack and I, but it sounds better to say welcome back, me and Timmy Mack. Who is Timmy Mack? I am talking about one of the best to ever do it at the University of Michigan, one of the best to ever do it from the state of Michigan. He was a McDonald All-American from Clarkston, Michigan. Played his basketball on the hardwood at Chrysler Arena, was a first-round draft pick in the National Basketball Association, where he played for 10 seasons, has been a commentator in college basketball and the NBA ever since, one of the best around. And I like to introduce him first, though, as my friend, my guy, Tim McCormick. I call him Timmy Mack, and you guys do too, because he walks around and they say, "Hey, Timmy Mack, Tim McCormick, how you doing?"
I'm good. I miss talking to my friend. How have you been, Sam?
I've been great, Tim. Been looking forward to this because, Tim, to introduce you and introduce this show, I've been telling people, Tim is one of the most, when it comes to talking about, the teams and any broadcast that you do, you don't boast. You don't offer like grand, kind of prognostications. But on this team, Tim, you've been like, hey, wait a minute. This one could be something special this year, Tim.
Yeah, I've watched this team practice 4 times. I saw the scrimmage. Oh, by the way, can I jump back? Can you keep a secret?
Sure.
Don't tell anybody this. All right, I watched The Golden Bachelor 2 nights ago. And it brought back so many memories because I remember as a freshman, my first weekend on campus, I had Paul Heyerman, Mark and Marty Bodner, my seniors. They took me to a party, and Kurt Becker and Ed Moransky and Bubba Paris were there, John Wangler, but the main guy was Mel Owens, and he was unbelievable, such a good guy. So I hadn't watched it, but some of my football guys told me to check it out, and I loved it. It was pretty funny. Kudos to Mel. I couldn't pull that off, but he did a good job.
Hey, and they've been. I think it was John Wangler kind of tipped me off ahead of time. He's like, "Hey, Sam, there's a Michigan man is the Golden Bachelor." I said, "What? You got to be kidding me! What would most say?"
Did you watch it all?
I have not seen it. I have not seen it.
You'll laugh. All right, back to basketball. I didn't really know what to expect walking into Chrysler for the first practice, and I was seriously blown away by the talent level. When I watched those 4 practices, it really jumped out that Dusty May is an excellent teacher of the fundamentals. Guys like him, but his number one skill is roster development and creation, recruiting. The talent level on this team is elite. They're deep, they're versatile. The practices were highly competitive. But the thing that I liked is if you can play basketball and not make it like a job, make it like just you're out playing with your friends on the court at home. That's what it felt like. I love to watch basketball when it's not drudgery, when it's not drill work. Sam, the other thing that really impressed me as I look back on those practices that I saw, every single one of them was much different. Like the first practice I saw, I thought, wow, they're really hitting the fundamentals. And it kind of reminded me of going to a Bo Ryan practice at Wisconsin, where the guys they're working on their passing and their box outs and talking on defense, and all of the coaches had a really strong voice. The second practice that I saw, they focused on the transition game, filling lanes, space, and cut, a lot more of getting this fast break going. Then the next one, there was a practice about defense, and it was so competitive. Guys were getting into each other. They were taunting each other. They were confrontational. A lot of talking. Will Cheddar is the best talker in the Big Ten. Like, his communication skills are off the chart. And then the last one was held in Chrysler. It was actually the practice that Adaimara sprained his ankle, which was disappointing. Before he got hurt, wow, he's going to be special. But that fourth practice was almost all scrimmaging, and the guys were having so much fun. So, Sam, get ready. This is going to be a good one this year. These guys are tough.
Yeah, it struck me. It struck me, your reaction, because I know you, Tim, and you don't. You don't boast. You don't overpromise. It's not like you to be like, yeah, they're going to be really, really good, and that be like, your heart speaking more than your basketball eye. That's your basketball eye telling you that. And I felt like this team, depth wise, was going to have more guys that it could roll out there. I could see it having more weapons, but the holes still concern me. And so I asked you about those, and we can kind of start there. I said, Tim, I still wonder, shooting, were they going to have enough shooting? And you said, Tim, I think they're going to be able to. I think they're going to be able to get enough shooting from this roster. You got guys that are going to be able to fill in. So you come back, and Namari's back, right? He's established himself as a good shooter. Will Cheddar has established himself. And then so the question becomes, have the guys who haven't established themselves as shooters, are they going to be able to carry what we've seen in practice? Because now I've seen it in practice, Tim. And what they have said they have in their track record, and they haven't been able to show in games, are they going to be able to take that and bring it to games this season? Because if that is the case, yeah, Tim, there's going to be enough shooting for this team this year.
So part of the equation to being a really good shooter is to getting open shots. And Namari Burnett is a top 10 shooter in the Big Ten. I think that most coaches would agree with that. But the reason I think that Roddy Gale and Will Cheddar and some of the other guys will be improved shooters, Trey McKinney and Winters Grady, why they'll be positive shooters, there's two factors. Number one, Michigan's big men are truly elite. They have lob threats. They have back to the basket post games. They've got cutters. Their big guys do a lot. And so everybody that plays against Michigan is going to focus on protecting the basket. We've got to sag down. We've got to help out. And that means that those guys are going to be roaming much more free this year at the three-point line than they did last year. Second thing is, when you've got a passer like Elliott Cadeau, he impressed me so much with something that is very subtle, but I always remember in the NBA, Mark Jackson, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, when those guys would drive and kick, their teammates would catch the ball right here, right in the shooting pocket. Like, it wasn't like they were jumping up to grab a pass. Those guys hit them right where they wanted the ball. Elliott Cadeau, he's like a savant in terms of being able to get the ball where somebody can do something with it. And think about this, Sam, when we were all growing up, when guys were shooting on the playground, if you make it, they kick it back to you, and it's a pass that comes from under the basket out, and you shoot it again. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it's like to play with Elliott Cadeau. Plus, Michigan's guards much, much better this year than last year.
Yeah, I wonder if it'd be like the Chaundee Brown effect. You remember when Chaundee Brown came, and he was like, I remember we were talking to Randolph Childress, and he was like, Chaundee Brown didn't get quality shots, but Chaundee Brown can shoot, and you'll see that he'll be a better shooter at Michigan. And that wound up being the case, Tim. That wound up being the case, and I wonder if that'll be the case for some of these guys. you talk about whether it's seeing the improvement in Elliott Cadeau, because I watched him shooting it really well in practice. And remember, he improved last year, so he said a lot of it was confidence, quality of shot in his second year, repetition wise. He feels like he's going to be better just based off of that. On this team, he's probably going to get better shots. And then when we talk about the man himself, Yaxel Lendeborg, he said, he's going to get better shots on this team. They're going to be asking him to also shoot threes on this team as well. Guys like that are going to have an opportunity to showcase that skill. And because of that, they say, hey, you're going to see, I can shoot threes. You know who else told me they can shoot threes, Tim? I don't know how many opportunities Dusty's going to give him, but Adai Mara said, I can shoot threes. You think
I saw him shoot a few. Yeah, I saw him shoot a few, and I kept thinking, you may want to hang close to the paint, big man. But it was okay.
What about the two freshmen, though, Tim?
Yeah, so massive upgrade from last year in the backcourt, and both Winters Grady and Trey McKinney, I think, are going to have shining moments. I would anticipate that each one of them will have a 15-point game at some point. And when you're talking about freshmen, especially on the road, I feel like what you hope for is that they really impact winning maybe once every 3 games. They're your support guys. You're not counting on them every game, but their talent level and their shooting is really, really good. And I think they will have an impact. And to show how much better Michigan's depth in the backcourt is, think back to last year. Like Trey Donaldson, good player, right? He had big minutes. He had some shining moments for sure. But think about who he was surrounded with in terms of guards. They had Reuben Jones. He always seemed to be kind of searching for himself. Pippen was hurt, and it just didn't work out. Fat Brooks left. Sam Walters, good shooter, but not really reliable. Michigan's guards right now are so much more advanced than last year. And that's going to make Elliott Cadeau so much better. Back to your point about the freshman guards. Yeah, I think that if you can shoot the ball as a freshman, that's a great asset to have. And it's something that Michigan can build on. They're going to get open shots. They don't have to create anything for anybody that will come as sophomores and juniors. Those guys are in a really good role for themselves.
Yeah, Michigan has more than 2 freshmen, but those are the 2 freshmen that I expect to be in the rotation the most this year, and because they can shoot. Trey and Winters, hit a couple in the exhibition game the other night, and Trey can really shoot it. Trey can really stroke it, and the other thing that Trey can do that I wonder if they're gonna, how much they're gonna experiment with him with this in the exhibition game coming up tomorrow night, even is let him trigger it a little bit, just like they experimented with Roddy in the opening exhibition game, just to see, as they tinker a little bit. That's what exhibition games are good for. But I wanted to mention Roddy a little bit here in the shooting capacity, because he struggled mightily for the majority of the campaign, and then he came on in the postseason. And Tim, in one of the practices I was at, he got into like a little bit of a shooting competition with Yax, and it was an impromptu thing where he was, they were, he was shooting in a drill, and then Yax was like, hey, let's just, let's go back and forth. And so, he was shooting corner threes. And then he said, okay, let's go from the elbow. And after he missed the first one, I think it was like 6 or so in a row. And they went back and forth. Then they moved to the top, and it was like another 5. And Tim, they moved to the corner, and it was another 500. These guys hit, I want to tell you, it must have been about 10 or 11 threes in a row. 10 or 11 threes in a row, both of them. And I'm like, man, it's practice. It's practice, Tim, but it's the kind of thing that you see, and it's like, it's clear that these guys have been working on their shot. That was my takeaway. Not that these guys are going to be lights out shooters. I'm not saying that. But it's clear that Elliott Cadeau, Roddy Gale, like the guys that you question most as shooters, they have put up a lot of shots in this offseason, which gives me even more confidence to your point. Shooting is not going to be a weakness, a problem for this team this year.
I sense the enthusiasm in your voice because we talked about this all last year about the shit. Is it true you stood up and were giving them a standing ovation for making shot? I can see you, Sam. I can see it.
It jumped out to me, Tim. It jumped out to me for sure.
So I look at especially Roddy Gale. There are some players that you just say, go out there and play, knock down threes to start the game. It's all good. He's not that guy. He feeds off of getting to the rim, getting to the paint, making a play, getting in transition. If Roddy Gale gets to the rim for the first 3 or 4 trips, then all of a sudden he shoots like a 35% three-point shooter. He's filled with confidence. And so I would tell Roddy, attack mode until the first TV timeout. Then you can shoot threes, but get to the rim first. And Yaxel is a good player too, Sam. Yax in practice, the first 2 times I saw him, I thought, okay, he looks good, but he's not wowing me. But then he'd make a couple of plays and you say, okay, that's NBA right there. And then all of a sudden, the energy level of him playing a game was completely different. He's a gamer. Like when you smell the popcorn, there's some guys that their game jumps 20%. That's him. And my favorite thing about Yaxel is that it seems like Dusty has a unique connection to him. Seriously, he had 31 and 12, and Dusty's comments after the game, I'm not sure he impacted winning the way he should. Like he wants more. 31 and 12. And those are like career highs for me, and I would have been celebrating. I would want my name in the paper. like they want more from him. And that's so unique. And I remember Phil Jackson talking about coaching Michael Jordan. And he said, when your best player is your hardest worker, coaching is really easy. I don't think that Yaxel has ever been the hardest practice player. He's the gamer. And that's an area that I can tell that Dusty May is looking for more.
Well, they were down by like 20 at the half or something like that. And Yax, his impact or imprint on the team was felt way more in the second half. Now there are reasons for that. The lineups they were playing impacted. They play LJ more in the second half. LJ's coming off an injury. They were playing Roddy a lot as the trigger man of the offense. There were a lot of turnovers that came from that. So there are reasons. And he said, we talked to Dusty here on Monday. He said, listen, Yax, he's human. He might be Yax, but he was pressing. He wanted to put on a show for the people, right? Yeah. And then after he, gets in there, gets the butterflies out, settles in. Now he just goes out there. He's just playing basketball, and you really see what he can do. And so, I think once he had that intro to Michigan, and once he had that intro to kind of playing with these guys, I think now there's also that acclimation period. Tim, you've been on teams where you all play together for the first time. That role definition. Okay, this is the man. Okay, it's kind of like everybody. This is the, let the man go do his work, right? Kind of letting that be established. And as much as that has happened in practice, it also has to happen and be established in games. And I think even though it's an exhibition game, you can kind of see that's the best player on the team. But you said something earlier. You said you went to a practice and it was, they were getting after it defensively and it was physical and they were talking. One of the things that stood out to me most, and you got to credit Dusty for this, was how physical he has made practices be. At least there's an element to every practice now where it's like, hey, we are going to be ready for the Big Ten. Now, you remember he said, Will tried to tell us, there's a different edge to the Big Ten, and we weren't quite. I get it now. Well, he wasn't gonna make the same mistake twice. Mm-hmm. He had the pads out. He was beating the hell out of. He was beating the hell out of the shades of. Not to say the time Izzo is the only guy in the country who basically takes out the football pads and beats on his players, but you were going to come up and have to go through a gauntlet to get a rebound. You're going to have to drive through, some contact to get to the rim. You were going to have to show that you could, hold your dribble through some bumps and bruises in practice. One of the practices that we went to, and I was watching the Daimara go through this, and he was having some issues, and they was like, "Hey, man, no, I understand that you were having some, you're not at UCLA anymore, but we're not gonna take it easy on you over here," kind of thing. And I appreciate that about Dusty. He was like, "Hey, we learned some things last year. We're applying it now. We're gonna be ready for Big Ten play from the start this season."
I've got a moment for you. It's probably hard to put you on the spot like this, but I think you might answer the question correctly. There was a game at Chrysler, and Michigan got just so punked on their defensive boards. It's another one. Illinois. Purdue, there's no doubt about Purdue. Like, that was obvious, but I think that the turning point for Dusty May was that Illinois game, because Michigan got beat up. They got knocked down. Guards were grabbing rebounds. And I think he said, "Oh, this is as physical as I've ever seen college basketball." And that's why you see Michigan's choice and who they're having their scrimmages against. Okay. Cincinnati has always been physical. I broadcast the Cincinnati, West Virginia game last year, and those guys were beating on each other. Wes Miller is a physical coach. They weren't very good last year, but they were physical. And then Rick Pitino's team last year, I thought, was one of the most physical, aggressive, tough teams. I don't know their roster really well right now. I haven't studied it, but I just know his DNA. This is another really good test for Michigan, and they're going to open their season against Oakland with two very physical tests and lots of information on how they can play more physical.
So let's big picture it, Tim, when you talk about lineup, rotation, strengths, weaknesses, or potential vulnerability. So let's talk about lineup and rotation. With your starting lineup, how deep does your rotation go? Let's start there.
So my favorite player on the team is going to start at center, Morez. He reminds me of a young Jalen Duren with maybe the potential to make a 15-foot jump shot. Severe lob threat. He's arrogant on the glass. Like, who do you think you are trying to take a rebound from you? Everything in this area is mine. Like, that guy, fans are going to love him. He's tough. He's super athletic. He's no nonsense. He's your starting center for sure. And if you're looking at bringing like a guy off the bench, that's unbelievable. And then Yaxel's your four-man, might be the best player in the Big Ten. There's some good players at Purdue, but he is exceptional. I think that Roddy Gale and Namari Burnett have to be your guards. They're seniors. They deserve it. They came back. They clearly were asked back because their leadership, and they bought in. And then Elliott Cadeau is going to really impress people. He's quick. He gets wherever he wants. And when you're rated as high as Elliott Cadeau was, going to North Carolina, all the expectations, I never felt like Hubert Davis and their staff did him any favors in the acclimation process. He was kind of out there playing with a bunch of guys that wanted to get their numbers. I didn't think he played well his first 2 years, but I think he's ready for a breakout. I love that starting lineup. Now, I've got some concerns. I've got several concerns. And one of them is, what do you do with 10 guys that can all play? Is chemistry going to be an issue? Are guys going to be disgruntled? I don't expect that, but you have to ask the question because there's only really quality minutes for 8 guys on a good team.
Yeah. I think as you ask that question, the guy that I think is ready to break out is LJ Cason.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one, as I wonder if you're looking at your starting lineup, and you're right. You want to favor seniority. It's a meritocracy. Like, you'd have to earn it. But boy, I'm just really intrigued by a guy with that skill set, a guy who I could give it, throw the ball to and have him attack the rim, and without a ball screen, he could collapse a defense. I feel like his jump shot is gonna come to the fore this year. I talked to Dusty about that, and he said, he shot it better in practice than he did in games. Like, he's a good jump shooter. I think that's gonna show up this year. And wow. I mean, that's great to have off the bench, but I feel like you got a guy who is ready to really blossom. And I think that is something that if there was one guy that is not in the starting lineup that I would maybe slide in there, it would be LJ. It'd be interesting to see what's the push pull there for them as a staff, either to start the season or as the season goes along, Tim. But I'm curious what you think about LJ.
Well, I look at LJ and feel like he is a young version, a smaller version of Jaden Ivey of the Pistons. When Jaden was a freshman, he was young. He made the wow plays, but also some uncharacteristic mistakes. Not saying that LJ is going to become as good as Jaden Ivey, but like their prototype reminds me of each other. I would take Gale and Burnett and Cason and let them split the minutes at the small forward and the shooting guard. It kind of leads to my biggest concern. Who's your backup point guard? I don't see it. I'm not sure why that wasn't addressed. I don't trust Cason or Gale as point guards. They're not point guards. And if Cadeau gets hurt, that's a major problem because point guard is a really important position. It's a lot more than dribbling, who's dribbling the ball up the court to set the offense. There's a lot of subtleties. Point guards are asked to do a lot. Michigan, to me, does not have a backup point guard that I trust right now. Maybe that changes, but that's my number one concern for this team.
Yeah, it's got to be LJ. It's got to be LJ. I think, Roddy is the guy I think they look to or look to try because he's a vet. If I were looking at just pure skill set, I'm talking about the game, the exhibition game, pure skill set based on availability, I would look at Trey more than I would look at Roddy. But Trey's a freshman. You can't look at a freshman and say, yeah, I'm gonna give you some run at the one. That's a whole lot to ask of a youngster in his very, very first action on the court. He went 0 for 7 in the game. You can see, right? So maybe that's something that they let him dabble in. But to get back to the point, I think it's got to be LJ because I just don't think Roddy is equipped to give you that. And then maybe maybe you cross train on the side, Trey there as an emergency option, because I think to just skill set wise, to be able to handle it as like a big guard, I just think that I feel like Trey is better equipped to do it. He's not experienced. That's where you would be short, obviously. But I think that he would be better equipped to handle it than Roddy, at least my opinion.
If you're looking at winning a Big Ten championship and you've got to go into Champaign or West Lafayette and play in that environment with a lot at stake, I just don't feel comfortable right now with any of the point guards other than Elliott Cadeau. None of them. But I'm going to be optimistic and say, prove me wrong. Like that's the fun thing about evaluating basketball. I could be completely wrong. They may have somebody that's ready to step in and be an elite backup point guard, but I haven't seen it yet, so I want to.
Remember, so how about this? It's not ideal, but we did see a whole season where they asked Namari to do it. Now it eroded his game, but we're talking about emergency options, right? So break glass. If you got to break the glass, I actually think Namari would be better suited than Roddy at doing it too. I mean, if you are in that kind of a pinch. Mm-hmm. So I would probably go there as well. But you said, we're talking rotation. We said line up in rotation. So 9-man, 8-man rotation, 9-man rotation, 10-man. I mean, you got probably 8 regulars with 2 more depending on the game. Tim, how would you say? What do you think?
I'm really curious on what's going to happen with Trey McKinney. His talent is immense. His background is well established. We know he's got star written all over him, and I relate to it a lot because in 1981 I was a freshman. I was a McDonald's All-American, just like Trey, from Oakland County, just like Trey. High expectations. Is he going to be a star? Is he going to the league? All that stuff. And I wasn't ready. And I played 12 minutes a game as a freshman. And that was appropriate. Like the Big Ten is no joke. And I was overwhelmed physically, and the game was so fast. And so if Trey could play 12 minutes and understand that he's going to blossom at some point and he's going to become a star at Michigan, and he's got to be patient. I went through it. I know it's not going to be easy to get good minutes. Who do you take off the court to get him minutes? Do you take Burnett? No. Do you take it? Like, it's going to be hard to get minutes. He's got to be patient.
All right. We'll have opportunities on future episodes to really dig deeper into the roster, because there's some really intriguing guys deeper on the roster as well. But let's talk big picture, Big Ten and beyond for this team. When you consider you got a Daimara coming off the bench, it's going to be a really, really tough matchup for teams that's coming off your bench, which is crazy to say. I think they're the favorite to win the Big Ten, or should be. That makes them a Final Four contender. What do you see as the outlook for this team? Who do you see as, them being in the mix with in this league and then nationally?
So I know Purdue well. We all do. They're returning players. They added players. That they're going to be the favorite for sure. That doesn't mean that Michigan's not a better and more talented team. And a Daimara brings something that is so unique. He's got some Zach Edey in him, just some unique size that throws people off. Plus, he has really good hands, really good feet, and that's what I look for in big guys. Michigan has an immense lob threat. Last year, Golden did a great job in that area. Now they've got 3 players on the front line that in a pick and roll setting can be really good. I was at the Detroit Athletic Club last week, got a chance to listen to Dusty May talk, had a chance to spend time with him and ask him a little bit about his lineup. And he said something that was just so immensely intriguing to me. He said, when he took over at Michigan, he said, I want to be unique. I want to be different than everybody else. So that's why they went with the Wolf Golden big on big pick and roll. They're going to do that again this year. They've got big guys that can handle it. It's not out there yet, but I can really see Yaxel Lendeborg in the pick and roll game with his two big guys. And I think it's going to be really intriguing. We're not going to probably see it till Big Ten play, but that looked great to me.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see. So legit Final Four contenders then, Tim, if you're saying that we know Purdue well, then you would favor them over Purdue, which I agree. I said the same thing. I was thinking Purdue too until you throw Yaks in the mix. Oh man, it's like now. So where does that put them? Like, who do you see as like the major teams nationally?
Well, the best roster construction is Duke. The Boozer twins are star power. They're at least Cameron's going to be in the NBA next year, and he could have a Cooper Flag type of impact. After that, I haven't really dove into it. And Sam, I struggle. I started reading some of the magazines and started following the teams, and I just got confused because like I'm thinking, okay, wait, he was on Wake Forest last year, and now he's in Nebraska. Like, how did that? Like, it's really confusing to me. So I've watched. I watched Wisconsin practice in person. I watched Nebraska. I watched Michigan. I've studied Illinois. They're really intriguing. They've got a lot of talent too. I think Purdue, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois are the elite of the Big Ten. On a national stage, if you give me like 2 weeks, I can come up with a really good list for you, but I'm not going to study it until there's games that I can actually scout.
I got you. All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't just throw in, because it's such a major story in the game of basketball, period. This federal probe into the NBA is it's obviously touching us on a personal level. We've had the Malik Beasley deal. It totally shook that up and took that deal off the table. We'll see if he still winds up with the Pistons. He wasn't named in the probe yesterday. But then Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, one of the all-time greats with the Pistons, now the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, arrested yesterday as part of this probe. I'm just curious your thoughts about this, what this means for the game, how many guys this touched and what this means for the NBA.
So it's horrific and it's embarrassing, and it's something that you and I talked about right at the beginning of NIL. It's one of the first topics we discussed, that by giving college players all of this money, you're also giving access to people that are in the gambling world to college athletes and NBA athletes. Relationships are being developed. Imagine if you're, in one of the crime families and you want to try to be able to connect with college athletes. All you have to do is donate NIL money, and all of a sudden you're at practice, you're getting to meet the players. I think that there are a wealth of stories of corruption and money laundering and all of this stuff. And we have not even begun to hear about it. There are so many issues. If you turn on any game, you've got BetGM, Bet General, whatever it is. I'm not a gambler, but like everywhere you look on TV, that's what you see. And so I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, we'll see.
What is it? BetGM? Is it BetGM or what?
Yeah, there's so many. I lose track too.
Yeah.
I lose track too. So hopefully they figure out a way to find a balance and a way to police it, because I feel that it's obviously here to stay, but you got to figure out a way to corral what has obviously gotten out of hand. You got 30 people getting arrested, and someone as esteemed as Chauncey Billups getting caught up in it.
Right,
and proven guilty. You have to wait to see.
It's so widespread, and all of a sudden it's playing poker and it's betting on games. One area that I think that college and NBA basketball will have to address is providing accurate information on who's playing games and getting it out there. Heavy fines if you say, well, at the last minute, a star player is not going to play, because that's creating opportunities for people to get the real scoop and then get it to gamblers. So that's the first thing they have to clean up, is accurate who's going to play, who's not going to play.
Yeah. Good stuff, Tim. Timmy Mack back in the house. Another season of the Michigan Basketball Insider. So it's tough. I mean, man, see, the schedule makers didn't do us any favors. Michigan basketball, Michigan football. Like, why did they coordinate the schedule better for us?
Well, we can find it on Big Ten Plus, so we'll see it eventually.
Yeah. So,
I've got my mind on football right now.
I hear that. Looking forward to it, Tim. We'll see you. We appreciate you. Folks, we got to get to a break, but thanks to all of you who tuned in for this edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. And to the rest of you, we got to get to a break. We'll be back on the other side here on the Michigan Insider, back on the other side on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com.
Clear on radio.